Welcome to the Write, Publish, Market podcast. If you're a business owner thinking a book would be a great marketing asset for your business, you're in the right place. Maybe you've already committed, even better. I'm your host, Jodi Brandon, book publishing strategist and partner for business owners, CEOs, and entrepreneurs, and 20 plus year veteran of the book publishing industry. On the Write, Publish, Market podcast, in addition to learning from me and other industry experts, you'll hear from other business owners about their experiences as we explore all facets of writing, publishing, and marketing a book that will help your business grow in ways you might not even be dreaming of yet. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Our guest today is Kim Stewart, a podcast coach for authors and the host of the Book Marketing Mania podcast. Kim helps nonfiction authors reach more readers as a podcast host and guest. When she's not strategizing with clients, you will find her in Dallas, enjoying time with her family and indulging in coffee, caramel, and Friends reruns. Sign me up for all of that. So, Kim, welcome. Happy to have you here today.
Hey, Jodi. Yeah, so great to be here to serve your listeners.
Give us the skinny real quick. I recorded your professional intro, but give me like the quick and dirty in your words, who you are, who you serve, what you do.
Yeah. So I'm a podcast coach for nonfiction authors, and I love helping authors grow their platforms and market their books long before they write their book and long after as a podcast host and guest.
Love that. Love it. We had a coffee chat several weeks ago now, and I knew the second you said, I actually wrote it down on my notes to bring up. You said, what I hear all the time is, I love writing, but I hate marketing. And the little alarm bells were going off in my mind because I hear that quite a bit as well. I've been talking a lot in my world lately and hearing a lot about long-term marketing strategy. And so I think podcasting is so great for that. And I'm so happy to have you here to teach us, all the things.
Yeah, so fun.
Let's talk first about the difference between hosting and guesting, because I know both are great, but you have a particular affiliation or love for hosting.
Yeah, I do. Well, and like you too, you host a podcast. And for so long, and I mean, still it is one of the biggest ways to get your book out there, right? When you're marketing your book is to go be a guest on podcasts and do like a podcast tour. But I just felt like over the past couple of years, I kind of feel like the landscape has somewhat changed. Like it's still a great marketing effort to get your book in front of new audiences, which is usually the key to that, right? You're trying to get your book promoted to new audiences. But even like before you have a book in hand, you can get in front of those new audiences and bring them into your circle of influence. And my favorite way to do that is to have a podcast to bring them in to listen to, or if you get them on your email list, you can then send them that you're on your podcast and come listen to that. And I just have seen a change with that, Jodi. I don't know if you have too, but I still think guesting is an amazing way to get, to grow your platform and market your book. And I think it's easier than hosting. I mean, I do agree it's easier, although I probably would argue a little bit with that. But I do think it's easier because you don't have to do anything but show up, right? As a guest, you just show up and share your story or share about your book, share tips, whatever that may be. But I have just felt like for a while now, if, our attention spans are getting so much shorter, and I don't know that listeners are always really getting that same chance they used to. Like you could talk for 30, 45 minutes and you really get to know that guest. And so you can't wait to buy their book or can't wait to get on their email list. And I think people are just much stingier with their time, they protect it so much more. So that's why I say, guesting is still important, but I really think the best thing to do is guest in the effort that you are bringing those people onto your own podcast. You're guesting to grow your own show so that you can, usually like if you were to say in your intro for me that I host a podcast, well, no matter when they tune out of this interview, if they do, they're going to probably remember that I host a podcast and come check it out. So I just think that's just my big thing. Difference is I still believe in both of them, but I just really think if you host a podcast also, and you have, opportunities for collaborations like what Jodi and I are doing today. And I just think it opens a lot more doors, but I know there's a lot more to that. So that's my long, short answer.
I love it. There's so much to dig into there also, which I think I am hearing that too. And seeing that for myself with a lot of clients with just shorter attention spans, got to get where we want to go quicker, shorter. I mean, my audience for sure prefers shorter episodes. I think that's just a sign of the times, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, is the pendulum going to swing back ever? And if it does, not for a while, I don't think.
Yeah. And I think it depends on the type of show. I mean, like some celebrity shows, if you love the celebrity, you'll listen to their podcast as long as it is. Like, I'm a huge fan of the New Heights show, and I mean, it's so silly, but like, I'll listen to that show all day long. Yeah. But other shows, I'm like, oh my gosh, can you get to the point already? Yeah. They take 15 minutes to introduce the episode. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have listened to 3 podcasts this amount of time. So I think, I don't know that it's going to swing back to, for certain podcasts and certain attention spans, but I'm not saying they all have to be short, right? But just like the same thing, we're not saying we all have to be long either. So I think it just depends, on each show and in each listener.
Yeah. Well, and as a host, part of your job is to find that sweet spot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that's something I didn't realize as a new podcast host. I've learned over the 200-ish almost episodes. So yeah, it takes a little bit. So
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about using your podcast as a podcast host. Mm-hmm. I know you call it the fast pass to then guest on other people's shows. Let's talk about what that strategy might look like for people.
Yeah. Well, and again, you may have seen this too, Jodi, since you host a podcast, but I know like once I started my podcast, I had done a little bit of guesting before that. But once I started my show, I was so blown away by how many invites I got as a podcast host to guest on other people's shows. And it was just simply, I mean, they knew I had something of value to bring. But I think before they knew that, it was like, oh, wait, she's a host. She knows how to record, she knows all the things. And so I would love for her to come be on my show. So I think it kind of opens that door. The fast pass comes in because they may have a lot of people pitching their show. They may have a backlog of, potential guests, but they see that you're a podcast host and they're like, oh, you kind of scoot to the front of the line because of that, but also because of the collaboration aspect there, because what I've seen too, more and more hosts, they want to be guests because they see the value in getting in front of new listeners and gaining listeners for their own show. So if you see somebody with that hosts a podcast and they're pitching you, then there's an opportunity there, to swap. So I just think there's so many things like that it opens up doors and does give you that fast pass to get past the line. Because, sometimes podcasters, are booked months in advance, so even, if you have a really good relationship with them, you might be able to sneak in around your launch date, but even then, that's not always going to happen. So, Right.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Well, especially for nonfiction authors, right? You're probably, when you're not doing traditional book marketing, but you're just talking about, books in general or business in general or something like that, you're probably both talking to hosts and then inviting people on your podcast whose audience is a good match for yours. I mean, like we're doing like a podcast SWAT, like that's, it's just, it makes it so much easier to make those collaborations happen rather than, trying to, force a round hole into a square peg or whatever, pegging it the whole other way around, Jodi.
Yeah, but so true. Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit, Kim, and talk about the actual book writing, because I'm sure a lot of my listeners right now are saying, oh my gosh, I'm trying to write a book. I'm trying to revise a book. I'm trying to do all these things. Now you want me to host a podcast on top of it. So let's talk about that a little bit, what that might look like, because I think it is easier than people. I don't mean to make it sound like it's super easy, but it's easier than people think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And maybe the word, I just heard this the other day on Dave Jackson's podcast. I think it was, if you listen to his podcast about podcasting, but I think it was him, but he was talking about simple versus easy. And I thought, I probably need to say that. Like, maybe it's not easy, but it is simpler than people think, but I mean, me and you would just think it's easy, right? But I do. I think there's a lot of ways, again, this is how I think the landscape has changed somewhat, is it's not just a standard. You want to start a podcast, you have to interview a guest every week. It has to be an hour long, like that's not the case at all anymore,
Yeah.
And, it could be solo episodes. It could be a mix like you and I both do. We do a mix of solo and guest episodes. And like we have figured out, our audiences like those shorter episodes. And I think that's the key thing. If you haven't started a podcast yet, you may not know, but like for Jodi and I, we can go look at our numbers and see, what is the average listen rate? And that was really eye-opening to me, I was like, okay, if my listeners aren't listening any longer than this amount of time, why am I, doing this?
Right.
So, and it could be, I've listened to so many podcasts that are like 5 minutes and I'm like, wow, that was 5 minutes. Like I got so much out of that. And now I have, something to go do this week, some action tip that I didn't have before. So I think that's, it can be a lot shorter than what people think. And it doesn't have to be this big, elaborate, You have to have a team and spend all this money at all anymore. And you just have to think about, like what you coach clients on. I mean, if they're building a business with a book, how much do they need to share? Because it's a lead magnet for them, right? You're just trying to generate leads or talk to clients on your show. And you just don't have to have these big, long episodes anymore. So, I mean, it could be a weekly show. It could be a bi-weekly show. It could be a once a month. It's your own show to do however you want and however is best going to meet your business goals, because if you're trying to attract them to work with you, well, you don't need to give everything in the podcast, right? You're trying to get them, get their attention. But the other thing too is, I don't know, Jodi, if you've seen, like these capsule podcasts that have been created. And there was a gal, Betsy Wallace, that did like a podcast tour several years ago. I found out about her from Angie Triplett, our mutual friend. And she taught how to do capsule podcasts, which was basically like a 6-episode podcast. And it would, it's public and everything, but it would just live out there kind of as, again, kind of a lead magnet, but a public one that people could find. And I think that's so underutilized by authors because they could do that to build their list. They could do that to talk about their book. There's so many ways they could use that. And you're still a podcaster. You may not be putting out episodes every week, but you have a podcast. And sometimes that's a good stepping stone just to get into it and see if you like it. And then, whenever you feel like it, you can add more content to it. And then, of course, there's like a private podcast. There's just so many ways to use podcasting, to help you meet your goals. So I just think, but again, it can be so much simpler and easier than we make it out to be.
Yeah. Simple versus easy. Total. That's good. I think we all probably could be using that. Hey there, business owner, an aspiring or published author. Sorry to interrupt this episode. Just wanted to check in and see if you're subscribed to Coffee and Commas, my email newsletter, where I share behind the scenes, industry info, and much more about writing, publishing, and marketing a book for your business. Sign up at bit.ly/coffee and commas sign up. That's all lowercase. Now back to the show. My wheels are turning as you were saying that. I'm going to have to look more into that capstone
capsule podcast. And I don't know if she used to offer it as a service. I don't know if she does anymore, but I think she had one. And like there's some out there, like some really older ones, like Jenna Kutcher has one on like building your email list. Okay. And, I mean, she probably didn't call it a capsule podcast, but it's basically what it is.
That's what it is.
John Lee Dumas has one on like starting a podcast. They've been around for years, but it's just that kind of that same, it's just a little
same concept.
Piece.
Yes.
Yeah. You can go and listen to and binge a couple episodes and get into their sphere, and then they can market whatever they want to. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'm doing a series right now on this podcast about my book revision because I'm doing the 3rd edition of my book this year, and that's been a really fun. First of all, I mean, this is going to make me sound lazy, but it's like slots an episode out of your editorial calendar right there, like once a month for 6 months. Like, so, and people love behind the scenes. Like they love that like peek behind the curtains.
Yeah. I loved it.
I do too.
I've loved it. Just trying to write a book. And I love what you're sharing. And it's so true because we keep hearing that like about social media and anything is like people want to know the reality, the behind the scenes. But sometimes we struggle with, well, what does that look like? And then, what would that look like on a podcast? And you're a perfect example of that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've gotten, I think the most feedback in my life from an episode from the book update episode that I did where I basically admitted that like my writing calendar went haywire. I had to revise it like 4 times. I ended up just like going away for a couple days to finish the manuscript. Like I basically did everything that I tell my clients not to do to get themselves back into that corner. And I bet I got the most feedback I've ever gotten from that episode. So
that's so true. I had that same thing happen, Jodi. Well, I had missed a deadline on my book because I had some things come up too. And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to beat myself over this. But I did share it, with my email community. And then I took a little break from my podcast. And I hadn't really planned on, I could have batched, ahead or aired some things I had in the hopper. But I was like, no, I'm just going to take a break because I want to show everybody, you can do this. Like, it doesn't have to be this, grind it out no matter what, and just be real with your people. And they do love it so much.
They do love it. Yeah. Well, I think, all of the anecdotes and you've shared and you've basically explained like in a nutshell, like this, there's no like set form. This can look different for you than it looks, like the two of us, I'm sure, run our podcasts and everything very differently. Like you can make it work for you, whatever your business is, whatever your situation is, wherever you are, if you're writing a book in the process, and which I love that. I think that's one of the, I think that is one of the things I love most about podcast hosting and had no idea before I started.
Yeah.
So tell me how you started. Your podcast came before your book?
Yeah, I'm still working on my book now. So I don't know.
That's right.
My goals haven't published this year, but who knows? We'll see.
Right.
I'm holding myself. Hopefully we'll get that done. But I started about coming up this summer will be, what year are we in? 25. It'll be, 4 years. So 4 years ago in the summer. Wow. And so before that, the big part of my business was pitching authors to podcasts to guest on. And so like the year before that, I had gone to a podcasting conference just to get to know podcasters and learn more about podcasting. And I was everybody was like, why don't you have a podcast? And I was just like, wow, I don't have any reason to have a podcast. I just didn't see any reason for it at all. And then like the next year, I kind of felt like I needed to start putting content out because I didn't have a blog or anything. I mean, I referred totally on, referral traffic and referral from clients. And I just started, thinking that I had so much content I wanted to share, and be a thought leader. And so I was like, well, I don't want to blog. I don't like to write, and I didn't want to do videos. So I was like podcasting. And I love the podcasting world. So it was just like a no-brainer to start.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, that's a great point too, that you inadvertently brought up. Long form content, like pillar content, SEO generating content, like podcasts, like I think a lot of people automatically go blog. Like they think they have to have a blog. But you can use your podcast as, I use my podcast as my long form content now. Yeah. And like the content little hub around which all the little wheels come out every 2 weeks, like to make all the content. So it's really, it can be that for your business. Which is fantastic.
Yeah. And you were talking about that. Lately I just have been kind of off content we've connected on Threads as well. And I haven't even been on Threads lately because it just hasn't felt good. I just haven't taken the time to do it. I miss it, but I haven't taken the time to do it. But I was thinking like so many people kind of, it's like they feel like they have to do all these different things. And I think like with, social media, if you're like, I don't know what to post on social media, it's like if you do have that long form content first, you can pull from it, and share it on social, So I think it just makes everything so much easier. If you do want to venture into some video, on social, or if you do want to do blogging, it's like if you could just, if you are comfortable behind the microphone or even as a guest, you can take that and put it into blog posts to make it so much easier for you. So I love that it's the first stop of your long form content.
Yes, absolutely. It makes content creation easier for those of us who don't think of ourselves as content creators. We think of ourselves as business owners. Yeah. And the content creation is a slog sometimes. Let's face it.
So true. Yeah.
It really, it's made a huge difference for me as far as, because it is simple. It is, I don't want to say easy, but it's easier.
Yeah. Easier.
I am comfortable saying that. It's easier.
Yeah.
So, well, hopefully we've convinced some people who, and if you've got a book or working on a book or have a book already, like it just gives you such a head start, I think, at episode, like topics, like you were talking all the different ways to use podcasts, like different, little playlists you can develop and all of that. So hopefully this has been some really good advice, Kim.
Yeah. I've been so surprised too, Jodi, like just as I've tried to look and learn about writing a book, and of course, so much easier if you work with a coach like yourself, but if that's something you want to do, or if it is something you're doing, you're going to be really happy and surprised how in sync it is when you think about starting a podcast. Like because I'm coming from the podcast world, and as I started looking at book writing, I'm like, this is so similar. You have to know who you're speaking to and what problem are you solving? And if you kind of look at those two together, it makes it so much simpler too than you think.
That foundational work is really, really important. And and it plays a part of everything we do in our business, whether it's writing a book to serve the business, having a podcast to serve the business, all those things. It helps you clarify your messaging too. And that obviously, especially, in any medium of communication, obviously, like that's critical. So
yeah. And I don't know, Jodi, in your book, I can't wait for your book to come out. I don't know if you're linking to any of your episodes because you have so many episodes, that could nurture your audience too, that might be reading the book. And that's what I love too, like being able to have that as,
Yes.
something you can put into your book. Maybe you don't have to have a whole chapter on XYZ topic, but you want to like link a QR code or something to a really great episode on that topic. And I just love that it all kind of works together.
Yes, that's actually one of the steps of my revision process this time, because the last time I revised, I didn't have the second edition came out before I had a podcast. So yeah, I was linking different, freebies and lead magnets and things like that. So now we have a good mix of, check out this podcast episode on that, or check out this workbook on that, or, kind of a mix, which is fun. And it's been fun to kind of, look at all of those. I don't think about being, having this many episodes, and then you look at like the content library to pull from, and you're like, wow, look at me go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what, when I first started, I pulled from my podcast first. Like I was like, here's my table of contents. And then I just filled in from my podcast. It was like, wow, this is again, easy. Like I'm pushing the easy button to get started, because I've already put together that content. It's like you're writing your book, but it's on your podcast. You don't even realize. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you've got, chapters that relate to episodes and sections that can be pulled out to be like a little micro episode, things like that. And I preach about repurposing all the time. And that's a perfect way to do it, because then you're not starting from 0 words when you're writing your book. You're like, oh, look at all this information. Look at all this content I already have that I can use. And it like sort of gives you like an early win, like a little push up the hill to get some momentum.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, this was a fantastic conversation, Kim, as I knew it would be. I don't let anybody leave without a book recommendation, though. So I'm sure you have one. I know you're a reader. I see all those books behind you.
I know. Well, and I love reading my Kindle. I don't know if you're a Kindle reader, Jodi. I love it because I can just pick whatever genre I'm in the mood for. I always have a ton of books. So I just finished. This is a good, if you like this kind of genre, beach read, but it's Geneva Rose. Is that how you say her name? This is a fiction, suspense, thriller, kind of a little romance involved in there too. But it's Geneva Rose. And it's called The Perfect Marriage. Is that right? Yeah, The Perfect Marriage. Geneva Rose. Yeah, it's like I think it's a bestseller now, but
like suspense thriller or scary thriller?
Yeah, it's like suspense. It's like like a legal suspense novel with some romance in there and just a little twist that you don't expect. Really good.
I've been dipping my toes more into suspense. I'm a big chicken, so like anything like super scary, I'm out.
No, I agree. Yeah, I like it. Keep my mind wondering what's going to happen. But I don't like the scary, really scary stuff by any means. But it's a good little escape by the pool or the beach.
Oh, that sounds perfect for summer coming up. I love that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Kim, what's the best place for listeners? Obviously your podcast is the best place for them to connect with you, right? Give us
I would love. I'd love for them to tune into Book Marketing Mania, which they'll hear Jodi on the podcast soon too. And they can just connect with me on my website, kimstewartmarketing.com. I would love to connect with you.
Awesome. We've got all that in the show notes. This has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for coming on and being my guest.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for the invite, Jodi.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Write, Publish, Market podcast. I know just how busy business owners and CEOs' schedules are, and I'm grateful you've taken some time out of yours to spend with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, take a quick screenshot and share it on social to let others know you're listening. Use the hashtag Write, Publish, Market to spread the love.